Good morning, sir. How are you?
I am good.
That is so much better, and I thank you so much for joining us this morning. A lot of things on our plates here, and because of the technical problem, it already started eating at my time. So let me shoot in, first of all, in hoping that you're having a wonderful day, ask you the question. May Day is approaching. Unions' role in a shaky economy comes under scrutiny. My first question to you, sir, Dr. Winford James, is this. Do you think the approach of the present-day trade unions is consistent with a shrinking economy?
What a big question. To ask about the approach of the credit union is to think that there is a simple, generic approach, right? But, the trade unions have a variety of approaches.
Yes. And
they exist, of course, to advocate on behalf of their members, their workers, who follow them.
Mm-hmm.
They're to make sure that their workers enjoy the best working conditions and, of course, the best pay given the economic and financial circumstances of the companies with which their workers are employed.
Mm-hmm.
So the trade unions do that very well. Nobody does that better than they. And certainly government, because government's scope and reach is so all-embracing, is so widespread, it's difficult for government to focus on a particular group of workers. So trade unions do that better than the government. Let us admit that. And now, to answer the question, I think you'll have to get more specific. But to the extent that you mean that trade unions should not be demanding salary increases or rises in pay, given the parlous circumstances in which the country finds itself, and recently we know what Standard & Poor, how they rated the economy.
Well, you're right. You said maybe I should refine it. I will more artfully and more specifically direct it thus. Are we in a situation where the confrontational approach that we are seeing from unions and the demand for increases in a shrinking pie, are they consistent? Are unions doing what we know they should do, which is represent the workers? Are they asking for too much, considering all that we are looking at as against trying to explain to their membership the difficulties we have and the adjustments of expectations that we should equally have?
Well, you see, that question is a nicer question, easier to answer. The question reduces to how much knowledge we have of what employers are earning and what they can pay workers. That's how it reduces. And very often, the public, and apparently also trade unions, do not have enough information about what employers are in fact earning, and therefore the argument that workers should not be as demanding, even though their demands are cyclically legitimate, the argument that they should not be too demanding can be answered by a proper analysis of the state of affairs. But the country hardly ever gets a proper analysis of the state of affairs. Let's give you an example. I don't know that Republic Bank right now has workers. I think they settled recently a pay situation with their workers. But Republic Bank, as other banks, have been publishing very huge profits. Of course, we know those profits are not shared with the workers primarily. They're shared with amongst the shareholders. Now, if you have a trade union that says to the bank, you need to pay our workers more, your workers and ours, you need to pay them some more, you can answer that question by doing an analysis, a very rigorous analysis of the earnings, the profitability of the bank, and say, yes, that can happen. Of course, I'm not going so far to discuss the ripple effect on the rest of the economy. But I am saying that when government says it can't do this and it can't do that, does it just simply say that and then say you workers are not being responsible at all, you're not being very patriotic? I mean, that's a judgment that employers make. But nobody has a monopoly on rightness of their judgment. So the workers are not expected to just um, you know, uh, accept government's judgment or any other employer's judgment on the state of finances or state of the economy. This thing has to be discussed and discussed in a very scientific, evidence-based way.
There is no quick answer to this. Let me see if I can just stay moving on this, because you made a point en route to get into the answer. And it begs the question, are we, through directing our ire at workers' demands, unwittingly supporting businesses who refuse to adjust their profit expectations?
But that answer is simple. The question is simpler to answer, yes. The results of that. We may be unwittingly supporting business with their profitability. Businesses who don't want to adjust what they take as profits. They don't want to do that at all. I mean, many businesses are like, they keep the profits going. We know where the profits are shared, but those profits are not coming to the workers in the measure that they should. And so we might be supporting businesses in that way. Now, that's private sector. What about government? Government is business as well, in the sense that government employs people and pays them wages. Are we automatically saying government is right in the way they have analyzed? And what labor has to do is to so adjust their expectations and their reasoning to accept government's point of view. A civilized society cannot work like that. And that is why I have been one of those persons who have called upon the university to have an independent body to be examining these things. Of course, it's a heavy undertaking, but the point is money can be made there. We are talking about putting a businessman as the chancellor of the university. Being made to make money. One way in which the university can make money is precisely to have a research arm or research arms, which in fact investigate the matters we are talking about and analyze those matters and come up with their independent analyses and conclusions. Now, if we could reach that stage, we can now say, look, government is saying this, labor is saying this, but here is what the independent research body is saying. In other words, there's greater credibility for such a body, and the public could be better advised. Even labor that is regarded as intransigent. Now, government is hardly ever regarded as being intransigent. Employers are hardly ever regarded as being intransigent, but labor is. Labor might be asking too much, but we have to examine that. I'm saying an independent research body can in fact shed light on the situation and provide a basis for intelligent solution.
It is fair to say that looking at this situation, it is not a quick, yes, union is right, union is wrong, their way is wrong, all right. What we are in fact saying here, we have to take this almost on a case-by-case basis to deal with it, and they are both sides that has to, both sides must make some adjustments. I want to move you, Dr. Winford James is the voice that you're hearing with us here this morning. I want to move you into the area of the Superfast Galicia, which is a Tobago situation, the ferry tendering by month extension, a classic case of how business should not be done. I guess it begs the question of procurement legislation, the approval process, the whole thing. I even discussed that with my first guest this morning. My question, you as an analyst and observing this situation, what we see going on here, right up to the latest thing we're hearing, is that the agent for the Superfast Galicia saying any further discussion, we want to keep this quiet between us. Government saying, no, that's not the case. It's going to stay in the public arena. Are we going to see any heads rolling as a consequence of this deal with the Superfast Galicia that is nothing but chaotic?
No, I don't think any heads will roll, because I have come to think that the crisis was created. And I think the crisis was created by the government side.
Really?
Yes.
It's a big statement, Doctor. Please explain.
It's a big statement because, listen, what is the short-term solution? As I understand it, the Superfast Galicia was costing some 14,000, 15,000 euros per day, right? The hire of the transporter, that is the barge, and the provider, which is a ferry, is now going to cost us over $30,000, 30,000 euros. So we are moving from a situation where the daily rent, the daily cost, was 14,000 euros to 30,000 euros now. That is supposed to be a temporary solution for 4 months, right? Until they get a better alternative.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But they knew all along that the Superfast Galicia was going to leave. And one of the main reasons it was going to leave, quite apart from what other shenanigans that may exist, but they knew that the Superfast Galicia was going to leave precisely, or most importantly, because they were operating on a month-to-month basis, which they found was intolerable after some time.
The voice you're hearing, this is that of Dr. Winford James. Dr. James, as you know, the government contend that there is correspondence between the Intercontinental Shipping Limited, the government, and the Port Authority for the charter hire agreement to be extended for a further period of 18 months from May 1. So at the end of the day, the government is saying that we had an agreement in place. And they are saying that if even if some claim it wasn't signed, the fact is you collected money because money was paid all up until the end of April. So I'm wondering of your statement that, in fact, this could have been a government-concocted situation as against what the government is saying. Listen, we have an agreement here, and this is the agreement at which forced the Intercontinental Shipping Limited to come back to the table and have discussions, even recommending a replacement for the Superfast Galicia at their cost.
No, man, because if you just look at the evidence, you don't even have to listen to words. Let's just look at the evidence. If the government had a contract with Superfast Galicia, and that contract was supposed to end, let's say, in October of this year, why is it the country let the Super Galicia go? The courts, by the way, ruled in a particular way, and the matter was in court, you know, and the Super Galicia has left. Now, if they had an obligation to us, why would the courts let them go? And why would the country let them go? Remember, the Coast Guard came up with the Galicia, a company that escorted the Galicia on its last trip, you know.
Yes, to make that last trip, yes.
So that the point is we had the power to hold the Galicia if it was in violation of a contract. But the court ruled, and the Galicia has gone. So that is one piece of evidence. Secondly, do we know that the contract was signed? A contract may exist, but was it signed? I mean, why would you have a situation where you have a month-to-month arrangement up to October 2017, if you didn't have a contract that said it's for the whole period? Why have a month-to-month arrangement? That's another piece of information. Somebody is misleading us somewhere, Mr. Bishop. I'm just pointing out those two facts. Right. So you begin to ask yourself, what's happening here? And go back to the first point I was making, you know. That is to say that the thing is now more costly. Not only is it more costly, but it's the provider is taking another 4 hours, 8 hours to get to Tobago, whereas the Superfast Galicia was taking 4 with all the consequences that you can think about. So it's slower and it's more expensive, and the Galicia was on a month-to-month contract. Now, who benefits from such a circumstance?
I thought I read that it was not going to be more costly, but I don't have that information before me, so I won't follow through on that. However, it is an interim measure. And an interim measure that's working on a longer-term agreement, which they're looking for in addition to the purchase of a vehicle that will be owned by the people of Trinidad and Tobago, which is going to alter this situation in a big way. But I'm looking at what I see appearing, reported in the newspaper today, that the Intercontinental Shipping Company is talking about providing at their expense a replacement to the Galicia. And I don't think if there was not a case being made by the government that there would be such discussions, do you?
First of all, this situation was avoidable. Port was not in place a few weeks ago, the port board, sorry. It's been around for a little while.
Well, it's been a problem from day one. I mean, if we are to believe what we're reading, is that the initial awarding of this contract was done before the Port Authority Board actually approved of the vessel. The money was done 9 days before, was provided for payment to this group. This is according to what I am reading here. So from all sides of it, there is something very strange about this arrangement.
Fusion of information. The fact of the matter is that we have had a new government since 2015. Mm-hmm. And so if you felt that the port needed to be cleaned up in terms of removal of its board and replacement by a board that could do the job better, then you had enough time, because the Galicia has been around since 2014. I have made a point elsewhere that there were hints that the Galicia, the Trasme, the owner, Intercontinental Shipping, the agent, were unhappy with the rental arrangement.
The month-to-month situation, yes.
Right. And so government, through its board, must have known. There was a board headed by Christine Sahadio?
At the time, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And that's a PNM appointed Emma, and I imagine the rest of the board as well. So the government can't tell us that it was now knowing, and it cannot simply say we are now discovering bubble. If you find bubble and so on, you think there's a case of bubble, take your legal action. But my point is, you must have known that there was discomfort on the part of the Superfast Galicia owners and agents with the lease arrangement. And then, of course, they announced earlier this month, that they were going to pack up and go. And the matter was taken to court. Now, they have gone, we have allowed them to go. Now, why would we allow them to go if they were in violation? I mean, I know that the claims are made, but let's deal with the facts. I mean, are you going to call them back? I don't know. If they owe you, if they're putting you under serious heavy manners, can you just simply allow that? Now, in such a circumstance, if you thought, not saying that the government thought so, but if you thought that the rental per day was $14,000 and it was too high, why would you allow a situation to develop where you now have to wait until you get a proper replacement, but you are going to be paying the current replacement more than 100% more of the rent that you're receiving, you were giving to the Superfast Galicia?
We're going to wait and see how that plays out. The voice we're hearing is that of Dr. Winford James, and we are talking about the Superfast Galicia. There's a lot going on with that, and I believe a lot more will play out. We're going to wait to see how that happens. But when I get you, sir, there's just so many issues that I've got to take you around on, and being knowledgeable of all of them, I want to go into this area of the proposal, not by the ministry, but by the Principals Association, Primary School Principals Association, I believe it is, that teachers' lunch hours the lunch hour be reduced to 30 minutes to allow for greater supervision of children at the time when indiscipline raises head the most. Tutor says outright no, not going to happen. The minister said, I will listen to all sides before I comment on that. What is your view on it?
I've listened to them before you instituted the policy, before you came up with the policy. I mean, what wrong-sided way is that?
Well, he didn't come up with the policy. Now, the policy came from the National Primary...
But I mean, what the point is that he intends to. He was signaling, right?
He's going to listen. He's going to listen to all sides.
You can't say in the way that he talked. You can't talk like that except you have consulted with all the stakeholders, right? And he clearly did not consult with Tutor. Is that correct?
Well, again, he did not make the statement. My reading of this is, here is a proposal that came to him.
A newspaper report that attributed it to him.
He floated. The idea is floated, and it was mentioned.
But you have to be careful with your floating thing. Anyhow.
Yes, indeed.
I'm not as important as what I'm about to say. Where is the evidence that supports a reduction of a lunch hour from, let's say, 1 hour to half an hour? There must be evidence that if you did so, there are going to be salutary effects. Now, for you to come to that decision, and you're saying yes, no, but for you to even signal it, means that you have done your research, you have gone to jurisdictions where the lunch hour was 60 minutes, and now it's 30 minutes, and there have been beneficial results. I mean, that evidence has not come before us. So basically what you are saying is that the kids have too much time on their hands during the lunch hour, and therefore if we were to reduce such a time, they would have far less time in which to commit their mischief. Now, maybe so, but I don't know. What are the implications of this? It means that teachers are going to have a shorter lunch time as well. That's what that means. And teachers are already burdened. If you know their timetables, you know how burdened teachers are, right? And of course, it's not as if the government is employing new teachers. They have not been doing that, Mr. Bishop. They have not been filling vacancies. So that people have to do more work with few than with more, affecting quality. Now, I don't have the evidence that reduction of time in which children have a certain, idleness, a certain level of idleness, can reduce the bullyism that takes place in school, the violence that takes place in school. I don't have any evidence. And so the thing looks absurd to me. Now, it may not be, but it looks absurd to me. And the government seems to be grasping at the Minister of Education, seems to be grasping at straws to signal something like that. So the basic point I'm making here is he should have been adducing the evidence that led him to signal that a reduction is going to result in better behavior of the kids. It might result in worse behavior for all we know. But where is the evidence? And I find to have a big ministry like that, and to come out with a signal like that without the basis of evidence is almost, what is it? It raises the question of how are you governing? Are you governing by superstition? You governing by emotion? How are you governing?
And I got the observations that you say, Dr. James. I just reiterate that the minister got the proposal from the principals. It is not one that he floated. He said, I'm going to meet with these people and hear what they have to say.
Except that I don't think the minister is signaling to us that any proposal that comes from a principals association he will accept. I think he decided to signal it because he found it reasonable. It's not everything that somebody else tells you go with publicly, Mr. Bishop. It must be that he found some credence to it. But then the credence that he has found in it has affected his credibility. People are wondering, where did Mr. Garcia get this idea from? And remember, too, that he's in a little bit of hot water, too, with the appointment of the Chancellor of the West Indies. He says, Cabinet instructed me to go talk to the public. But he obviously spoke prematurely because the University Council is the one that appoints, has not yet done so. Why couldn't he wait? You follow? And in any event, the nominee was the choice of the Trinidad and Tobago government.
Yes.
And if you're going to accept the choice of you're saying that, okay, he's all right. I'm just saying, as a person who thinks that he thinks and reads and understands, that these are strange revelations and strange pronouncements. These are, to my mind, unforced errors.
Unforced errors, that is something that we have happening in a lot of places. I know that the ministry has come out to defend the minister in this chancellor issue, but you and I will continue on that at a later time. Doctor, it is always good speaking with you. You know I love to step in there with you. That situation with the Galicia is not over. We are going to come back to that. In addition to, there is something that I'm going to discuss with you and a couple of other learned people like yourself. This question of what is really needed to make that trek between Trinidad and Tobago one that pays for itself. You cannot have a boat leaving Trinidad, taking stuff to Tobago, and coming back empty.
Excellent.
So you and I are going to have that conversation at a later time. I thank you so much for taking the time to be with me this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you, too.